Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In today's session we are going to discuss about WEBAPI and we are going to perform CRUD operations by using entity framework. Here we are going to use Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 and we are going to use database as SQL Server 2019, and to test the WebAPI we are going to use Postman. Here in WebAPI, for create we are going to use post method, and to read the data we will use get. For update we are going to use the put, and finally for deletion we are going to use delete method. Before continuing with this session, I would request you all, please subscribe to my channel and click on bell icon for notification alerts. So we are using Visual Studio 2022. Click on create a new project. Here we can search for our web application. Select the ASP.NET web application with the .NET framework. So here we are going to use the C#. So select the C# language here in the filter section. Select the ASP.NET web application. Click on next. Here we have to provide our project name. Here you can select the location where you want to store the project. So I am going to store inside this demo folder under web API. Select folder, and if you want to change your solution name you can change it here, and you can select the .NET framework which you have latest .NET framework. I am selecting 4.8. Click on create. Here we have to select whether we are going to use the web forms or empty or web API. In our case we are going to use the web API. I am going to select web API, and I don't want HTTPS, I will use HTTP. Click on create. So our project is creating here. Our project has been created successfully. Now we need database to perform the CRUD operations. For that we are going to use the SQL Server. Here I am going to use Windows authentication. This is my system name, and this is my SQL instance called SQL demo I am using. If you want to use SQL Server authentication you can use it by providing login ID and password. So in this demo we are going to perform CRUD operations with the Windows authentication. Click on connect. It's connected to database server. Expand the databases. Here I have database called demo1. In this one I have table called employee. So this is the table we are going to use it for this demo. Right click on the employee table, select top 1000 rows. In this table we have 3 columns: ID, first name and last name. This is the table we are going to use it for our CRUD operations. First we have to create our entity model by using entity framework. Before adding entities we have to add reference of entity framework. For that right click on the references, go to manage NuGet packages. Here we have to click on browse, search for entity framework. We have to install entity framework. Click on install. To install any packages we need internet connectivity. Click on OK. Accept the license terms. Our entity framework is installed successfully. Now we have to add entity model. Right click on the models, add, click on new item. Here click on data. Here we have to select ADO.NET entity data model. Here we have to provide the model name. I will give it as employee model. Click on add. Select the EF designer from database, click on next. Here we have to provide our database connection, click on new connection. Here server name we can take it from our database, right click here, connect. So this is our server name, just paste it here. Now we can access our database which is available inside this SQL server. So our database name is demo1. Click on test connection, connection succeeded, click on OK. So this is the connection string name where it will save inside our web.config. If you want to leave default one, you can leave it, or you can change this. I'll change it as employee entities. Click on next. Here it will show all our database objects like tables, views and stored procedures. In our case we are going to use one table called employee. Select the employee table and I am making as employee model. Click on finish. Our database model has been added here. This is our table employee with ID, first name and last name. So same thing, it is added as entity model, and here you can check our model also. This is employee class model. So this model has been generated by entity framework. Next we have to create one controller, that is WEBAPI controller. Right click on the controllers, add controller. We need WEBAPI controller. Select on WEBAPI. Here we have multiple options, like you can select the empty controller. Here you have to write all your action methods manually. You can use the actions using entity framework. It will generate all the action methods for us. In our case we will take it as empty and we will create all our own action methods to perform the CRUD operations. Click on add. Here I will make it as employee API controller. So this is our controller name, employee API. Click on add. Here we have to access our entity model. For that we have to add the we have to provide the reference of models. We can access our entities here. So our entity name is employee entities. I'll make it as DB. Here we have to initialize this. I'll create one constructor. Here I can set it to new employee entities. So in our CRUD operations, first we will create add method or create method, create employee, so which it will return string. To perform create action method we will use post in WEBAPI. Here we have to pass our model, that is employee model. We will pass it to the database to save all the entries. Here all the entries will be saved inside the model, and here we have to pass into the database, that is db.employee.add. Here we have to pass our model, that is employee. So once it is added we have to save our database changes. Finally we have to return the message as string. Here we have provided return type as string, so we have to pass the string here. So once it is saved successfully, we are going to return this message to the user. So we will select all the things. If there is any unhandled exceptions is occurred, then we have to display that message. For that, select entire code block, right click, go to the snippet, surround with try. So if there is any uncached exceptions are happened, it will show the message here, return x dot message. Now we have completed create part. Now we have to read the data. First, get all employees. For this we have to create one method. Here we are going to return all the employees. For that we will use IEnumerable, which will be handles our list of employees. So we have to use get method for read the data. Here we can directly return all the employees dot to list. So we can read all the employees by using the get method. It will return list of employees from the database. Then we have to create another method to read employee based on employee ID. Here get ID. We will create a method. It will return direct employee because it will be having only single employee. Here we have to pass the ID. First we have to check any data is available with this ID, then we have to return. For that we will create one object of employee. We will use the find method to get the employee data based on this ID. If any data is available, then we will get the employees. If employee is not equal to null, then we have to return employee, else return null. If there is any data available with the passed ID, then we have to return employee data, otherwise we have to return the null. Then we have to create update method, update employee. Here also we are going to return string only, so we are going to use put method here. Here we will pass ID and employee model. Whenever we are updating employee details, we are going to pass the ID. Along with the ID, we have to pass employee information. Based on this unique ID, we are going to update the employee table. First we have to check whether any employee data is available with this ID or not. For that I will create existing employee, find. We are going to use the find method to find out the employee details. Here we are going to receive employee details based on ID. If there is any entries available, then we will get the record or we will get the null. Here we have to validate that. If it is not equal to null, then we have to update the data, else we have to return the message as data not available. First, if it is available, then we have to update the table. Existing employee dot first name we have to update, that is available inside this employee object. Employee dot first name. Again we have to update the last name. Here we have to add the state as modified. State dot modified. Finally we have to save the changes. So this is existing employee data and this is the new data. What we are doing, based on the ID we are validating the employee details. If any employees are available with this ID, then we are updating old values with the new values. So finally we are saving the changes. Here once it is updated, we have to return the message because we are using return type as string. I'll use the same content. Here updated. Suppose if there is no records found inside employee table with this ID, then here we have to send it as here we have to pass ID. So this is we are going to return if there is no data available with this ID. So employee details not available with ID, which is passed by the user. So finally we need one more method called delete to delete the record. Public string delete. Here we need to pass ID to delete the employee. Here also we are going to return string. First we have to check is there any employees are available with this ID or not. For that here we have to pass the ID. Now we have to check whether is there any data available with this ID or not. So first if employee is not null, then we have the entries and we can delete. Here we have to pass employee object to remove, and here we have to save the changes. So finally we have to return the message deleted. Suppose if there is no entries with this ID, then we have to return this message employee details not available with ID, which is passed by the user. Now we have created all the methods. This is the create, get all employees, get employee by ID, and this is the update method, and this is delete. Here we can apply a try catch block also. Select entire code block, go to the snippet, surround with try. Especially whenever we are using the DML, that is data manipulation, then we have to use the try catch block. Here we will return so here delete method also we will use the try catch block, so that if there is any unhandled exceptions are occurred, then we can catch easily. That's it. Build the application once. So there is no error. Run the application. To test this WebAPI API, we are going to use the Postman tool. So now we have to call our API slash employee API. This is our controller name. So at present we don't have any data, that's why we are not getting any employee information. You just copy this URL and go to the postman. Here we are going to create the employee. First we will use the post method, because we use the post method to create employee. Click on body, click on draw. We are going to pass the data with the JSON format. Here I am going to pass first name, then I have to pass last name, so these two values we have to pass, first name and last name. ID is identity column, we no need to insert any values, it is a primary key, automatically it will be inserted, so we have to insert these two values. Click on send, sending request. So employee details saved successfully. So earlier we don't have any records, we will try to execute this table, so our data has been saved here. So now we will try to execute the get method, that is get all employees. This method we will call it send. So we are getting the employee details from the table. So we will insert another record also. Employee details saved successfully. Here we are getting 2 employees now. So now we can try another method, get employee by ID. Go here. So here we have to pass our ID, that is I will pass 1008, send. So we are able to get the data. Whenever we are getting employees by ID, here we are validating if any employees are found, then only we are going to return the employee data. If there is no entries available, then we are going to return null. So we have to check this validation is working or not. We will pass one ID where it is not available in the database, because in our case we have 2 employees, one is 1008 and 1009. Here we are going to pass something else like this and click on send. So as we expected, it is returning the null. So this is the condition we validated here. Now we will try to update the employee. I am taking same thing here. I will try to use put method for update. So I am going to update this employee 1009. You can see here we have 2 records in database, we are going to update this one. Here we have to pass the body in raw format, that is JSON format. We will copy this, paste it here, and so this is the data need to be updated in the database. We will try to update, send. So we are getting the message as employee details updated successfully, and you can go to the database and you can execute here. This 1009 has been updated as we expected. Now we have to perform another testing like delete. So we are going to delete this entry, copy this, we are going to new tab. Here you paste the URL and select the delete method, click on send. So employee details deleted successfully. We will check the database, click on execute. So that 1009 entry has been deleted from database. In update method we have to validate this condition. This condition already we validated to update the details. Here we are going to check this condition is working or not. For that we have to pass one ID which is not available in the database. I am trying with this ID which is not in the database. At present we have only one record which is having ID of 1008. We are going to test this update action method with the ID 10. So here we are getting employee details not available with the ID 10 because this ID is not available in the employee table. So like this we have to test delete action method also, because we are validating delete also. Here also I am passing ID which is not available in the database. Click on send. So employee details not available with the ID 100. We have corrected this typo error. So like this we can perform CRUD operations in WEBAPI. So in upcoming sessions we are going to consume this WEBAPI in ASP.NET MVC, also in the .NET Core. So that's it for today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.